This is Geeks Represent, where we talk about representation and issues that matter to us geeks. We are
Daryl,
Marshall,
Sean,
and your host, Joe. Today, we'll be talking about martial arts movies. Sure, here at Geeks Represent, we love all kinds of action movies, but there's just something about the martial arts genre that gets our hearts racing and adrenaline pumping. So, without further ado, let's jump kick right into it. Geeks, nice. What is it about martial arts movies and shows that just kicks all the ass?
Well, first off, there's no stupid puns like that one, because that was just horrible.
You clearly have never seen Mr. Nice Guy.
No, I haven't, but I have seen The Protector, and I will send some knees coming to your face.
Oh, okay.
Still love you.
Anyway, but yeah, what is it about martial arts movies that you guys love so much?
Well, for me growing up, it was like my first introduction to the idea of like superheroes. Back then, like all I knew about was like maybe like Superman and maybe Batman, and back then they weren't really good at fighting. It was more like slapstick comedy and just like picking people up, dropping them down, and then like very comic book like action sequences that were really, really poor. Or like Star Trek when what's his name when he was fighting that reptile? Yeah, Kirk was is like the worst fighting sequences ever. Yeah, so it was my first exposure to seeing like something so ridiculous and so fast and like so really just well choreographed that I was like, wow, like is this possible in real life? And like if so, this is amazing. So yeah, for me, it was my like first exposure to the idea of like, for me, we're superheroes or people to look up to growing up as a kid.
True. You mean people when they're fighting, they're not supposed to stop and like do disco? Kabam, pow, zing.
Excuse me, that's a Batusi. If you're talking about the Batman one.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, and speaking of Batman. It just feels like you really don't get a good like action scene in the movie if you're not at least referencing or just inspired by the classic martial arts films.
Yeah.
Because you highlighted a bunch of really terrible action scenes in different TV shows and whatnot. And like it's just kind of like the gold standard of this great footwork, great athleticism, and just great displays of violence.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I was trying to rewatch like Star Trek Next Generation, and one of the first episodes had this fight scene between two female characters, and all they did was just chase each other. You know what I mean? Like with their staffs and like whack. Like it's just. What kind of hell janky ass fight scene is this? This show is dated as fuck, which sucks because I like Next Gen. But well, you Marshall,
I liked it just because I saw like Never Back Down and Undercover Brother, and I was like, you know what? If someone could just jump and kick it and make it look cool, I could do it too. And then I started into Taekwondo, and I am I'm a yellow belt, but I'm now a black belt. So.
Oh, you a black belt?
No, but I'll tell you this, though. I can whoop someone's ass real quick.
Nice.
No mercy.
Nice. Cool. So, how do you think martial arts have affected, Asian American stereotypes? Like, do you think it's made it better or worse, somewhere in between?
I say somewhere in between.
Yeah.
Speaking just from mostly because like, going in high school, like mostly like the jocks and everything, they made fun of the Asian Americans like, oh, what are you going to do? You're going to like drop kick me? And I'm like, that's not even cool. The kid doesn't know any type of karate. He just because he's like, Taiwanese doesn't mean he knows how to whoop your ass. He just Granted, the kid did whoop his ass, but that's not besides the point.
I was gonna say, like, isn't that kind of weird thing to make fun of someone? Someone's like, oh, hey, look at this guy. He can kick my ass in like 2 steps. Like, oh, let's make fun of him. I'm just like,
I never understood it. Like, it's empowering, but at the same time, like, why would you rag on them for literally kicking your ass?
If they, or making fun of, like, it's not like saying like, oh, look at him, he has a little dick. It's like, oh, look at him, he can fight. And it's like, if he can fight, stop fucking with him.
Well, like, seriously, it's like, yeah, he could probably do a backflip swan dive and do a roundhouse kick without even breaking a sweat. Did you just list his whole like repertoire, or this bullying? Wow.
Right.
That's just what I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
No, I agree with that. It definitely does empower and reject like the weak Asian stereotype, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, why are you saying it like it's a bad thing? Like, I guess if everyone applies it to everyone, then it kind of ends up just treating everyone as a monolith. Like, oh, everyone knows kung fu, and then it ends up resulting almost in like kind of typecasting for roles or anything. To the point where it's like, oh, we kind of reject it, but then at the same time, it's like, but it's kind of cool to have that.
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Does it count as part of model minority myths? Like, oh, not only does he know math, he can kick your ass.
Kinda is, yeah.
It kind of is, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
I would say
like that's almost all that we're known for, like physical activity, that we're only good at kung fu. We're not like good at sports, but we can kick your ass. So it's like, it's a weird win in regards. It is
weird. It is a weird win, but honestly, I would take it over. Like, you know, you brought it up, the weak Asian man stereotype, which, you know, was definitely like perpetuated. You know, more Chinese and Filipino. And eventually, like, Korean and Vietnamese people started showing up in the States. People started, like, pushing that, like, oh, they work, like, you know, subservient jobs. You know, they work in the kitchens and the laundries, and, you know, like, a lot of it also stems from, like, I remember a story about, like, when Filipino workers came over to the States, they started, like, sweeping up all the white women because, you know, they were jacked as shit. They were laborers. And then and then Hollywood started pushing out like more like Asian characters that were like, you know, shitty, like skinny, like either skinny or ugly or weak and all that. So, you know, when the martial arts movie started showing up, it was like, yeah, good luck justifying that shit when this guy with like chiseled abs starts like tearing down everybody faster than a camera can catch him. So
that reminds me, another reason why I like martial art movie and just why they kick so much ass is because a lot of times the main character, he's not always like the biggest guy, and it's like often like a David versus Goliath type situation where you wouldn't think that he should be able to kick so much ass, but he can.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like growing up, like I was pretty skinny and small as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Like I really related to that, and it definitely inspired me a lot too to like do what I do currently, to like just basically, nah, fuck that, we're not weak, and just like do something about it and whatnot.
There is definitely like it is a reason why it's called martial arts, right? Like anyone can learn it, even if you're like the Mountain or like, you know, like 4'9", whatever. Like there's an artistry to it. And that is what makes it like different from other action movies. Other action movies, like it's all like choreographed, right? But you can tell like with action movies, like a lot of guns, like a lot of dodging, and just like bang, 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 or even like just like with a fist fight is usually just like, you know, depending on the movie, maybe less so recently, but like back then it was just punch, shove, like kick, whatever. But with martial arts, it's like there's a whole technique to it. Like even the choreography of it has got to be so like physically draining, right? And so like on point and precise, and makes it look really gorgeous. So
yeah, and it kind of not only that, like they usually include a lot of like dope philosophies from just like Eastern culture and whatnot. And you can see like even with like the history of martial arts where a lot of them were created by women or like just people who were just really underprivileged, underserved, trying to just defend either their homes and stuff like that. And then, yeah, it just gets passed down for generations, and they pass on a lot of those ideas in the movies and whatnot. And it's really cool to see for sure.
Didn't a lot of it kind of explode after like or during like the Boxer Rebellion? You know, like they lost, but like when the Chinese tried to fight off like British imperialists and British colonists, and all of a sudden people are like, you know what? Maybe we should learn how to defend ourselves. Even though they lost, because you know there's only so much you can do against like you know guns.
Yeah.
But still, like it enabled people to just at least fight back. You know.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it does help because, yeah, like you said, guns. But at the same time, it's like when you have that many people, you eventually run out of bullets.
So guns are useless. Well, not useless when you know a guy's in your face and about to punch you in the face.
Excuse me. What about gun kata?
Oh yeah.
Oh, you know what?
Christian
I
Bale.
guess that does count. Hell yeah. Oh shit! What's the movie called? No.
Equilibrium.
Equilibrium. That's right. All right, not gonna like gun kata
no
was
emotion.
badass. Yeah. Makes no sense. Like what? Two guys next to him pointing shotguns, and he just like swats them, and he turned in the air. Shotgun to the face. All because of a puppy. You know what? That probably inspired John Wick. John Wick. You know what? If we're gonna include gun kata, I guess John Wick also counts because that was also very. It's brutal, but all the John Wick movies are like very well coordinated too. Like great fight scenes. So
Yeah.
against great martial artists. But yeah, gun kata. We calculated like we made the style based on like the trajectory of bullets for most efficient kills. Like this is bullshit. It just looks cool.
Yeah. Just for context, it's like a fictional martial art that is designed to mix kung fu and guns, or just martial arts and guns, let's say.
And if you run out of bullets, or if you don't feel like having bullets, don't worry. Your guns have little hammers in the hills, and then you turn around and use them like hammers.
Yeah.
Great movie. I make fun of it, but it's a kick-ass movie.
Yeah.
But,
it's funny
all right.
premise, but yes.
I mean, a lot of like great martial arts movies, they're kind of like corny if you really think about it. Like let's see. Like Shaolin Soccer. If anyone's seen Shaolin Soccer, as you imagine, it's about a bunch of like Shaolin like martial artists who for some reason I can't even remember why. And that's a great thing about some martial arts movies. Like sometimes the plot doesn't make sense. Like or sometimes the plot doesn't matter. What matters is just like all the focus is on like the action sequences.
Yeah.
It's like the premise first, action next, and then story later.
Just fill in the story. Yeah.
They were trying to make money because they were just poor because Kung Fu doesn't pay.
Yeah. So they started playing soccer.
They wanted to win a soccer tournament.
That's okay.
Yeah.
The simple plots are the best. But
yeah.
I don't know. What other movies did you guys enjoy? Or what's some of your favorite action movies? The Protector? What's that one about?
Yes. That's where Tony Jaa's a man in Thailand who gets a very nice little. I think he has a elephant. He gets kidnapped. He goes to New York City and starts breaking at least 100 dudes' ankles using nothing but Muay Thai. And he's like 5 foot, beating up people who are like 6'5", full of muscles, and he just hands rated E for everyone because women get him too.
Yeah, that's the one with the spiral.
One word.
Nope. That's the one with that one shot, right? With the spiral staircase. where he goes through like it was like a brothel or a drug den or a casino, right? And he just like plows on through like a fucking juggernaut.
Pretty much. And I was like, that is awesome. And Muay Thai is just amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm sure that wasn't one of the first movies that did like the one shot, right? You know what I'm talking about? Where like they just like camera track follow like the fighter as he like plows through like 10 minutes of guys. So
yeah, I think they did like a Romeo Must Die or something.
Did they?
Maybe.
Possibly. I don't know. You start seeing a lot more of it. You seeing like a lot of like Western like TV shows too. Like I think Daredevil's known for that now, right? Like each season they got to have at least one fight where he goes through like a hallway or a staircase or something, and he just like camera track him as he fights like 20 guys as fast as possible.
Yeah, all largely uncut shots of a massive brawl.
But yeah, no, Tony Jaa is crazy good though.
Yeah, he's very brutal.
Yeah, I've been getting into more like the brutal martial arts movies. Not that like. Well, actually, all martial arts movies are brutal if you really think about it. The good ones.
Yeah, but like, dude, there's like mad decapitations and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, 100%. Hell, Mortal Kombat alone.
Wait, which one? Which Mortal Kombat? Mortal Kombat 1, Annihilation, or the reboot?
Annihilation.
Annihilation. You are my mother, and you will die. Gets me
Killer
every
movie.
time.
Killer script.
Oh man.
Lord. With the zoom in on Jackson's face. Yeah, now what? God. Terrible movie. Mortal Kombat 1 was great, and then the reboot was great, but just Annihilation, what were they thinking, man?
Still annoyed they didn't use the Mortal Kombat theme song in the reboot, but
that's true. That's
my only complaint.
It's
actually made it to the tournament.
That's true. That's true. They didn't. There was no tournament. They were just setting it up.
Yeah.
Shang Tsung was just cheating
before the tournament.
It was just Shang Tsung cheating. That's it. Great. Still kick ass though. Like the fighting was great. Like Joe. You guys ever watch like other Joe Taslim movies? Like ever seen like The Raid or even Warrior, like the TV show?
I have not. No.
Not yet.
Dude is fast as shit. Like he's pretty short too. But like I recently watched a really brutal martial arts movie called The Night Comes For Us. I highly recommend it. It's I think it's distributed by Netflix, and I'm pretty sure it's the same guy who did like The Raid. Also another like great action movie with Joe Taslim and Iko Uwais. And basically it's about this guy who's part of like the triads, but he's like in a force. He's known as a 6C or whatever. Like, all right, the 6Cs are like the top enforcers of the triads who like basically are allowed to like do whatever they want. But he gives it up because like he's ordered to kill. His team is ordered to kill like this whole village, including this little girl. But when it comes to, like the last girl, like child, he decides to turn against the triads, and he refuses to kill her. And then it starts this whole chain of events where like they're all after the girl because the triads are like, we have to send a message. You can't leave any survivors, and they betrayed us. You can't leave them alive either. So all this effort to kill him and a little girl. But like I said, the best kung fu movies are the ones where you don't care that much about the plot. But anyway, it's one of the bloodiest movies I have ever seen. People are just like, one person, she gets like a razor wire wrapped around her neck and she blocks it with like her fingers, right? But then someone like ties it to like an AC unit and kicks it out the window. So she's like pulled back. And then it's so slow. It takes a full minute before first she bleeds out to death from her neck, and then you see her fingers fall on the ground because it went straight through. I was like, what the hell?
Oh man.
See other guys like being like stabbed the shit out of it. They're still walking, and it's like, and like pulls the guy and like stabs him before he dies. It's like, holy shit, this is a great movie. But like I said, Joe Taslim's a kick-ass fighter because he's also one of the main characters in the HBO show Warrior, like the show based on like Bruce Lee's original script. And like, I highly recommend anything that involves Joe Taslim. I mean, he was Sub-Zero in Mortal Kombat. He was awesome as it, right? So
he was a 6 Sub-Zero.
Okay.
Yeah. Since you brought up Bruce Lee, we definitely gotta shout out Bruce Lee because like he definitely like pioneered and brought it to the States and made it like what it is today.
Oh yeah.
And basically like fathered mixed martial arts and all the other stuff too.
For sure.
And yeah, like he had really diverse casting as well in a lot of his movies.
Yeah.
He had Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, he had Chuck Norris, and
he was Kareem's teacher, right?
Too?
He was, yeah.
Sorry, Marshall, what was that?
He had like Jim Kelly in there too.
Yeah, he did. And Enter the Dragon. Yeah.
Enter the Dragon. I was gonna say, Enter the Dragon was really dope because it really mixed kung fu with like blaxploitation films together. Because like the soundtrack was like straight like it was like Shaft and it was just shot like that.
Yeah.
Like it was like because it was pretty different compared to his other movies.
Yeah, because the other movies were very more similar to like, you know, what you expect of like wushu like movies, right? But you're right. Enter the Dragon was like, it doesn't have to be like traditional like soap opera long. I know, Sean, you love those, like the long bearded like soap operas, but it could also be like, hey, there's a crime ring like on this like secret island, and the only way in is through his tournament. And he just and he recruits like what? It's like him, a white guy, and a black guy, Jim Kelly, going through it. Sucks what happened to Jim Kelly though. But someone had still a classic. It still holds up for sure.
Yeah. And one of those works that you see so many inspirations and homages and different media, different shows, and
it all leads to Bruce Lee. Like, if you watch Black Dynamite, it's all like Bruce Lee references. Dynamite, and like what he's fighting like what the equivalent of Big Bird, and like yanks the feathers and like blows on it like the Chuck Norris. Like,
also pretty much every fighting game that was started in like the 90s and 80s had a character that was just supposed to be Bruce Lee.
I mean, Shang-Chi was pretty much based on Bruce Lee, man. There wouldn't be Shang-Chi or Iron Fist without like Bruce Lee, for sure.
No.
Yeah, they had, I mean, Fei Long is basically Bruce Lee. And then even in Shaman King, they had Bruce Lee.
Really? They got the ghost of Bruce Lee?
Yeah, he was the
Lee Pyron?
Lee Pyron, the zombie guy. Yeah.
And how can we ignore Rock Lee?
Yeah.
The hair, the jumpsuits.
Also, jumpsuits, Kill Bill. Also inspired by Bruce Lee.
I mean, Kill Bill was like fan service. Like it was a love letter from Quentin Tarantino to like martial arts movies that he grew up watching, right? Like the training montages, like finding like the wise man and getting your weapon from a seemingly harmless like swordsmith. Long reach. And why do people make fun of Asian people for it? They're awesome. Were you not entertained
for Kill Bill,
or just martial arts movies in general, man? Because they are awesome. But
I feel like back then people were generally less receptive because dubbing was pretty poor. And I think they kind of made fun of kung fu movies for that. Yeah,
they definitely did that for like.
Yeah, nowadays people are more willing to just listen to like the original language and read subtitles. So I think that was probably a big part of it.
Not that the satires weren't, or like the spoofs weren't funny. I'm specifically thinking about Kung Pao Enter the Fist.
Yeah.
That
was a gem.
Middle school years.
Indeed.
It's so bad, but it's so funny.
Yeah.
Like, for anyone who doesn't know, it's pretty much a spoof on, like Sean was talking about, the badly dubbed and very melodramatic old kung fu movies.
Yeah, where they like repeat a lot of action sequences and just
like spin kick.
everything is like sewn together. It was like 5 kung fu movies put into one.
Yes. God. I do enjoy, like, I know we talk about like the very like solid, serious, bloody martial arts movies, but there's something really funny about like really, do you remember, did anyone else here watch Volcano High? That was on MTV. See, they made fun of the dubbing, but they dubbed it with like Maya and Snoop Dogg. I think Andre 3000 was the main character, right?
He was in there, yeah. Crazy cast, like hip hop cast.
Yeah, it was awesome. I think who was the Ox? Like,
it might have been Exhibit or something.
So
what's Exhibit?
Was this a dubbed TV
It's a dubbed
show?
movie. It was a dubbed movie.
It was on MTV.
Yeah. Like, it's basically about this guy who's like a delinquent and he like gets sent to the last school that will take him. It's like a martial arts school. But again, everyone hates him because, you know, that's just how it goes in these kind of stories, right? It doesn't make sense, really. And like all the clubs hate him. And they're all like, you know, like kendo or like different fighting styles. And shoot, I'm just trying to look up who was.
Yeah, Little John was in there.
Yeah, Little John was the Ox, I think. Zhang
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, Black Ox.
Yeah, Method Man was in there. Tracy Morgan was in there.
Tracy Morgan.
Yeah, it was a
Big
pretty star-studded cast.
Keyless.
Yeah.
Keyless. Yeah. No, it was. It's a dope. It was a very cheesy, very dope movie. I think like one guy was like there's a scene where like a student is smoking in class and his teacher, like they bring in like these martial artists to like discipline the students. And he's like, he like does like a 5-pointed strike on his chest and the black tar comes out of his mouth. And the other students are just like, we only puff. Don't do that. We don't inhale. Please don't hurt us.
Didn't they have like a really cheesy like rain scene too?
Yeah. They always do, man.
It was like a cheesy love scene with the rain.
Yeah. I think it was in the showers, right?
Oh, it might have been the showers, yeah. I remember water.
Because I think she was like,
long since I've seen it.
Because like they think the female lead, played by Maya, was like eyeing up the main character, and you see some, and then but like he uses his power, and all the water like explodes.
Yeah, that was like the first time they really like.
Oh shit! But yeah,
you guys should definitely watch it.
I had no idea this existed, and
now you need to watch it. You need to watch. You probably. I bet the original version's even better. But there's just something great about the American dubbing that was just so ridiculous.
Yeah, you want American dubbing. If it's a comedy, American dubbing is hard to beat.
Yeah, like you see, like hear Little John come out, this like 6'7" like Asian dude being like, "You can slice him, you can dice him, but you can't take down the Black Ox." Yeah.
Yeah, they really went in on that one.
Oh yeah, they didn't hold back, and I loved it for sure. Marshall, you mentioned like Never Back Down too, even though like because you know martial arts movies don't just have to be like just like Asians, right? They got Never Back Down. You also got like Romeo Must Die, right? Although I feel like Romeo Must Die was mostly just the Asian people fighting.
It was mostly just Jet Li, but it was like I loved it just because it was like VHS, and also like oh snap, it had DMX and then Jet Li, and they were.
Save for Cradle to the Grave,
yeah,
right?
Cradle to the Grave definitely did a lot in that one.
I'm glad you brought up Jet Li though, because it made me think. I think that was the other problem, like why people weren't as receptive to martial arts movies, because they were all either like Jet Li or Jackie Chan, right?
Yeah.
But I'm really yeah, but I'm glad like it's kind of like expanded, you know, because now we get to showcase like. All these other great martial artists, like the students we talked about, like Donnie Yen, Joe Taslim, Tony Jaa, Iko Uwe, Andrew Koji is no slouch though. Like I don't know if anyone's like watched him before. He was in he's the main character in Warrior, and so you know he has to fight well because he's pretty much emulating Bruce Lee and emulating his personality and his fighting style. Like I just finished the last season not that long ago, and we were talking about like empowerment. For those who don't know the plot of Warrior, basically it's about this like Chinese immigrant. He comes to America. His mission initially is to find his sister, but that's a long story because his sister ends up being part of like the triad, but part of the Tong, and actually like leading the Tong. So, which causes conflicts because he ends up joining the Tong, like another Tong group to survive. So, and they're like basically enemies. But anyway, so not only dealing with like each other, but they're dealing with like, white racists, basically, because they're living in Chinatown. They're basically like subjugated. Like, well, white people are mad that Chinese people are like getting paid, are basically used as cheap labor. And so a lot of like Irish people, for example, are like losing jobs because it's just cheaper to hire like Chinese people, Chinese workers, right? And so instead of taking it out on the white people who hire them, they take it out on the Asians. And it actually comes to a head with like this really, really awful, painful scene. Long story short, they lynch a Chinese guy because he defended a white woman from a white man. And they lynched him. And it starts this riot. And people are like, oh, they killed that one guy. But no, the Irish are basically like, we killed him. Let's kill the rest of them. Let's just flush them out of Chinatown. And they succeed for a while. They start like massacring a bunch of Asian people, which is really painful to watch, which is why it felt so good when the Tongs get over their differences, get together, and just start murking the shit out of these racist white people and just plow through like a fucking like flood. And you see like Joe Taslim and Andrew Koji, like, who are enemies in the show, like back to back with each other, defending each other and like killing the shit killing the shit out of racist white people in like the most brutal ways with axes and nunchucks. Like, there's a serial like again like Emily's Bruce Lee because like he like a guy like a just an average like Chinese guy. He's trying to defend himself with his nunchucks, and then they got a big white dude like takes it away from him and he's about to beat him with it, and then Andrew Koji grabs it, proceeds to kill him with it, and then goes like, "Can I borrow these?" And proceeds to be like the hero, like one of the heroes of Chinatown. So yeah, highly recommend. Very violent.
Yeah, I gotta watch that because it sounds like a recurring theme that is often shown in kung fu movies, or like especially with the ones that I grew up with, like with Once Upon a Time in China, The Legend of Feng Sayuk, or like any other like older Jet Li or Jackie Chan movies, or even Ip Man, where they show a divided China where they often fight against each other, but then when all the colonial people come, it's like, now we're on the same team, bro, and then it's like, let's fuck up the the racist white man, right? And then it feels so good to see them being able to fight back and whatnot, and basically stand their ground. And, so I definitely gotta watch that because that seems like something I'm very familiar with / into.
Any imperialist really, because like I rewatched Ip Man not that long ago, and like not just white people, but like the Japanese, right? They invaded, and like when Ip Man refused to like surrender or stood his ground against like the Japanese like general, everyone was like, hell fucking yeah. And inspired them to like fight back. Yeah, that is a big recurring theme. What do you think there's like very specific archetypes for like martial arts movies, like for like the heroes?
Absolutely, because I feel like a lot of them are based on legends and philosophies that kind of unite, like, or have like a huge like common thread between like the people of China or in Asia in general. So I think there is that archetype where it's like, oh, the smaller person beats the bigger person, because like that's the origin of a lot of kung fu styles, or like fighting imperialists. That's definitely a big thing too.
Or even like anti-heroes who like want to mind their own business, or they just get like sucked in, right?
Yeah. Well, that one I feel like that's probably more so coming from Bruce Lee, because he's like trying to flip a lot of like usual legends or stories on their head.
I mean, he was unusual himself because he himself was like, he embraced a lot of these philosophies, but he was also cocky himself. So I think he liked the idea of like the guy you're rooting for isn't exactly like a good role model, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because like during that time, like other kung fu movies would be like, oh, let's show the people practicing like martial arts in Shaolin temples.
Or they're always like
Buddhist.
Like master, like enlightened monks.
Yeah, exactly. And then we get Bruce Lee with Enter the Dragon. Completely different.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me. Does anyone remember like the light reboot, like the web series Mortal Kombat Legacy at all? Did anyone watch that with like Brian? It had like Brian T and Mark Dacascos. Who Daryl? You should know who Mark Dacascos is from Kamen Rider Dragon Knight.
Okay, no.
That was one with it had Jax in there, right? And Reptile. Like it was like a crazy grungy looking one.
Yeah, it was a very grungy one. Like,
yeah.
Michael Jai White as Jax. Yeah. But the second season, it had like it kind of revamped like Liu Kang as like again that anti-hero, that like grungy like. And the second season, I guess the protagonist you could say was like Kung Lao, played by Mark Dacascos, who's like the enlightened like Buddhist priest or whatever, and like he was like a mentor to Liu Kang, who was part of the monastery but left to marry a white woman, but then the white woman gets killed, so he just gets sucked into like this like darkness. And so I feel what you said about like the two like archetypes of like the anti-hero and the the holy man. I feel like that kind of like was almost an homage to that. Like they had to fight each other because in a twist, Liu Kang decides to join Outworld instead of the typical story where he's like fighting for humanity. So
another recurring theme such archetype that happens a lot of times is revenge story.
Oh yeah, because they're so good.
Really huge. Yeah, that's
revenge
like really big.
Yeah, like which one would you say like was it Fearless or was it Hero that was kind of a revenge story almost?
Fearless was a revenge story.
Yeah,
to the point where he like redeems himself because he has to let go.
Yeah,
and like for me, Fearless was really big because it was like one of the first movies where they are like trying to let go now, because up to that point, like all kung fu movies like revenge, and then like the hero wins, and then like he's kicking ass because someone beat his family and he gets revenge. But this one was like the first time where I feel like they are actually adhering to more peaceful philosophies.
For sure. You know what?
I remember being disappointed there wasn't as much revenge.
He needs more revenge. I can't remember another movie that was as like vengeful. Like that was the goal. Because like I said, Night Comes For Us was basically a guy protecting like someone weaker than him. And The Raid was just about like cops. By the way, The Raid, if you haven't seen The Raid, watch that too. A lot of like hallway, like long cut hallway fights. And I think it also exemplifies what Sean was talking about, like the smaller, like just because you're like bigger than the other guy doesn't mean like the other guy can't scrap, right? And like actually one of the good guys gets killed because he's fighting like this like skinny old criminal and ends up like a long brutal fight and ends with him like getting his neck snapped. Like just because he's small doesn't mean he can't kill you. So, speaking of philosophies though, y'all watch Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, right? Like Chow Yun-fat and Michelle Yeoh. I think that was also a good example of like the kung fu movie that people think about, like the very deep philosophies, like the protagonist like willing to die for his principles and all to protect like this, like in their case like the Jade Destiny, like a special sword, and keep it out of like the hands of like impure people with like impure intentions, right? Sequel sucked though. Which sucks because the sequel, it was surprising because the sequel had like Donnie Yen and Jason Scott Lee, who actually played Bruce Lee in the Bruce Lee biopic.
I mean, you can have good people in a movie, but then I mean, look at Chow Yun-fat, he was in Dragon Ball Evolution.
Wait, what's wrong with Bulletproof Monk?
I mean, it was amazing, but it ain't. It's not Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Hey, best philosophical question. Why do hot dogs come in packs of 10 and hot dog buns come in packs of 8?
That is true.
Blew
Marketing
my mind.
ploy.
Blew my mind when I was a kid. I was like, what?
Yeah, that story of just like letting things go and being like at peace and stuff with the world, I like appreciate that story a lot. I feel like it helped me be more calm as a person in life as well, and like just let things
More
come as
zen.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like another movie that kind of like that I really enjoy because of that was Shaolin with Andy Lau and Jackie Chan in it.
Mm.
It's basically like Fearless, but just on different characters. Because it starts off as like a revenge story as well. Like he's a general who's like super brutal and savage, and how he takes over just the provinces of China, and his underling ends up usurping him, and then it's just goes downhill from there. And it's just like how does he go about like all that, like manage all that, and being able to let go and stuff like that. It's just like to see his character growth is really something special.
I think that's all very common in martial arts movies too, especially if like the person wasn't necessarily that great at the beginning. Like you just see like not only like the character growth. I feel like the famous training montages of like Karate Kid and all that emulates both like the physical and like their mental and spiritual growth as people, right?
Yeah. I mean, usually you see more of their physical growth than their spiritual or mental. Because they're just like, if you're talking about Karate Kid, it's just like revenge, all the way to the point where look at Cobra Kai, it's just still revenge.
Right, that's true. I mean, everyone knows Daniel-san was a little asshat.
Yeah,
Johnny was right, man, and also,
Johnny was right.
Also, the move he used is it confirmed that was an illegal kick? A kick to the head.
I feel like it.
Yeah.
I mean, Johnny always mentions it, but Daniel's always like, nah, it's perfectly legit, man.
He kicked him in the head.
Yeah.
That's dangerous for a reason.
Yeah.
Wow. Classic. I love Pat Morita, but damn, does that movie flaw? Speaking of which, do you think where's the line between like I guess when it becomes like when did it feel like it was like culturally appropriative though? Because I feel like there was also like during the 80s or 90s there was a sudden string of like Steven Seagal, Jean-Claude Van Damme, who I still love Van Damme. Like Bloodsport is awesome, but like you can't help but wonder like did this get like I mean look at Kung Fu back in the day with like David Carradine, right? Like whereas I know we talk about cultural appropriation a lot, but do you feel like that happened a lot? And if so, do you think that's still like a problem today? Because I'm thinking of movies like even Never Back Down, even though Never Back Down wasn't really about like, it was more like mixed martial arts in general. And at least he learned from a Brazilian, so a little different, but played by Jaime Hansu. But they still think about like movies like Bloodsport, where a white dude kind of took. Then again, I guess that's corresponds to what Bruce Lee was trying to teach, right? Like anyone can learn martial arts. It shouldn't just belong to one group. I'm just rambling
because a lot of people were pretty mad at him for trying to teach non-Asians martial arts. But,
how dare you teach these white and black people how to fight?
I would say with the advent of like how big MMA and like stuff has gotten, I feel like it's not as appropriative anymore to do martial arts because I feel like it's for everyone, and I feel like it's clear enough that people know where it kind of came from, and like they still associate like kung fu movies with like Asian people and whatnot. So like to see them implement like kung fu and action sequences, it's so ingrained in Hollywood in terms of just action in general, because like you'll see like The Matrix, and once The Matrix happened, everyone copied The Matrix. In terms of like action sequences. So
I know kung fu.
Yeah, so it's like at this point, I feel like it's more like a it's not, at least the way that most people use it is more like just like a action device, more because it doesn't seem like they're appropriating, like, let's say, the philosophies and ideas behind kung fu. If
Right.
that makes sense.
Right. They're not trying to make like this random white dude spout like, ancient philosophies and Confucianism.
Yeah,
They had
and
a
if they
black
do,
dude.
it's like
Bruce Leroy.
that's what I was gonna say next. I was like, but when they do something like that, it's usually like clearly a parody that plays homage to the genre, like Kung Pao and The Last Dragon.
Yeah. What did he say? He kicked before he walked. But yeah. Nah, but yeah, for sure. Yeah. I guess with those, like, it's different because, like, at least they give some respect. Like, they acknowledge where it came from. They didn't just spout, like, oh, like, Confucius ideals. Oh, where'd you learn that? Jesus. They didn't try to just, like, cap it off as, like, something else that wasn't. So.
Oh, yeah. You don't have to go far to find where the references come from these days.
But those are for, like, again, where, like, the hero is clearly a hero. Or even, like, if an anti-hero, he's still, like, he was taught. I still, like, there's something fun about ultra violence, though. As bad as that sounds.
Yeah.
I
was also going to say, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking of, like, things like Romeo Must Die, right? Like, remember he, like, shows up. And that's the other, like, again, the empowering thing, because, remember throughout the whole movie, they kept calling him, like, dim sum, or, like, hey, like Chinese delivery boy, like, where you going? And then, like, he proceeds to, like, murk them all in, like, a stairway outside the apartment with nothing but his belt and, like, zip ties.
Yeah.
Or a fire hose. Like, I wonder if Anthony Anderson ever brags that he got to have a fight scene with Jet Li, even though that fight scene included him getting his ass, like, handed to him with a fire hose.
I mean, I would be happy about that. I mean, Jackie Chan mentions him getting beat by Bruce Lee on accident.
Yeah, he did get knocked out. That's true. It's an honor to be punched out by Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
I'll take it. That's true. Shit.
Yeah.
If Donnie Yen was saying, like, I would kick your ass, he's like, go for it. Just go for
it. Yeah. I was also going to say, like, in the movies where they do, I guess, kind of appropriate, I feel like they just do so poorly that it's like, it's not too much of a bother. Cough, cough, Dragon Ball Evolution.
Yeah. Cough, cough, like Last Airbender, where they just do, like, a fucking demonstration to lift a rock.
Yeah. It wasn't even like a big rock. It was just like why would you need like 10 people to do that?
10 people doing 10 forms to lift a rock or water.
One guy could probably pick it up and throw it.
Yes. Oh god. Yeah, that's true. Or like there was a really the movie Birth of the Dragon, where it was a movie about, it was supposed to be about Bruce Lee, and they had to recut it because when it first came out with the trailer, it had nothing to do with Bruce Lee. It all had to do with one of his white students and his relationship with this girl, and how, like, his relationship with Bruce Lee affected it. And I'm just like, again, I think I talked about this before, but I'm like, it's still the audacity of making a story about Bruce Lee about a white guy.
Yeah.
You suck. Any other movies you guys want to mention before we close up? Any movies that really stick out that are, like, really important to you? I noticed no one mentioned Kung Fu Hustle.
Quick shout out to the I was gonna say quick shout out to the Drunken Master series of films.
Yeah.
Classics.
Yeah. I kind of like the first one a little bit more than the second one.
Fair.
I know the second one had like a limited distribution out in theaters, I guess, in the 90s. I saw the first one on Hulu a couple years back. It was 2 decades ago. And like it was a straightforward young guy gets into trouble and his mom got scared and he's like,
you need to go with your uncle.
you gotta go.
Yeah, I was like,
Go live with his master and learn drunken fists or learn martial arts. And I mean, it was good. Like it was, you get to see the different forms as he's like learns them in his training montage, and he beats a guy who was causing trouble in town, and it was solid, good, straight up good movie. But then the second one got way more over the top.
That's how they always do it.
And a little bit of character regression. The whole plot line was him trying to get drunk but not wasted. So there's trying to find the right balance of being drunk and enough to be loose and not enough to just kill his liver. And so
that's hilarious.
Or smart. Good.
Yeah,
good,
smart.
Good thing the message to bestow upon viewers.
If you want to fight well, drink it, get wasted, but not too wasted. I mean, even if the sequel wasn't that great, it clearly had a great influence. Because I was gonna say, for all its faults, for all of Iron Fist's faults, I did appreciate that one scene that featured the guy from Mortal Kombat, right? The new Mortal Kombat, fighting in a drunken style. And I was like, all right, this is awesome. Like him, like super loose body, like, you know, just proceeding to kick Danny's ass, which really isn't that hard. Like,
and I'm not knocking the second movie entirely, because like I think I saw the final fight in that movie, the 9-minute long final fight in that movie back in high school, and it just blew my mind completely.
Yeah.
It takes place in like a mine, or like they're doing smelting.
Yeah.
So
With
like
the fire
there's
coals.
alcohol about and hot coals, and there's that stunt where Jackie Chan falls into a bed of hot coals, and it was incredible. So yeah, I mean, ignite my lifelong love of drunken fist stuff.
oh yeah,
So
for sure.
Yeah, we didn't. I was gonna say, if we didn't have that, then we wouldn't have Rock Lee when he trained.
Yeah, that's
exactly.
true. Dude. Also, speaking of, I was just gonna say Jackie Chan. It reminded me of something. Like, you know, everyone recognizes the roots of martial arts. It's easy to forget that a lot of things outside of Asia also influence martial arts, and that's especially true for like Jackie Chan movies, because he himself was inspired by Charlie Chaplin and like his like his like the silent films, like the physical comedy, and you see a lot of that in like Rush Hour and Shanghai Noon and Shanghai Nights, especially Shanghai Nights, where he featured Charlie Chaplin, like young Charlie Chaplin, played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, right? You keep forgetting that was the little kid, and like he kept martial art. I think he aspired to keep martial arts also fun, right? Like there's like a funny component too, and you see that like Jack every time he punches something, he's like like waves his hands.
I mean, it's true. If you hit something, it would hurt.
Yeah, he was like, oh no, bad day. Yeah. Well, do you have a favorite martial arts movie? Leave it in your comments below. Thanks for tuning in to Geeks Represent. If you enjoyed this discussion, subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and everywhere podcasts can be found. If you want to add to this discussion, visit geeksrepresent.com. Thanks for listening and sharing with your friends. Also, we're found on YouTube. Hey!